Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well. I want to try out a another challenge in myself of trying to make a Bloodborne sounding track. Unfortunately, I'm absolutely obsessed with the game and its music, and I've been listening to it nonstop ever since I've been playing the game. But I've watched a lot of piano tutorials on YouTube that showcase some Bloodborne music, and you can see how sort of the piano notes, it's just showing all the different harmonies of different instruments within the orchestra to create these different soundtracks. And I try to reverse engineer how they composed some of their tracks. And now I'm not really a great composer or a great music theorist, but there's really a lot you can learn by just looking at how they play with harmonies, keys, going out of keys, especially with Bloodborne being very dissonant since it's very inspired by horror music. And I wanted to see if I could, learn take what I've learned and practice it myself. So what I have here is a little thing I made. It has like an A section over here and a B section, which is more sort of chord oriented. I can imagine more choirs. Usually when I do this sort of approach to composing music, I want to just imagine what each thing I'm writing for would be. So stuff like over here, this would be for a string, maybe some brass to accompany these bottom notes, either brass or more like a violin on top. Maybe a choir even for these ones. Here, definitely cellos and double bass strings. And here, either choir, adding some string like to the tops here as well. Because from the last video I made on the Elden Ring soundtrack, type soundtrack that I made, I got really lost in just writing out chords. And once I wrote out the chords, I didn't really know how to make a melody on top of it. So I think I've done sort of a similar thing here, but I'm slowly deviating from just, writing the chords by themselves and just having them by themselves. So with each iteration or each project that I do, I hope to create to be fully masterful and mindful of what I'm trying to go for. I'm trying to just practice it so I can get a vision of what I'm working towards. So let's take a look at what I've written here. And so I've taken inspiration from a lot of the different pieces in Bloodborne. For instance, this bass section right here, this is inspired by the Cleric Beast soundtrack. Something like this. It's a lot of the tracks use this little technique, but I love how they have this. It's a lot of Bloodborne soundtracks do that, like Amygdala. The Bloodborne theme itself does that. And then I have really dissonant chords here. If you take this and transpose it up to make it like this, it's really just a minor chord, but then you take it down here and see something dissonant, sad, and it's just, it's so gross. Like, I love it. Bloodborne is, the way they compose it is so cool. And especially with all the other Dark Souls soundtracks too, they do the exact same thing. Really, like, off-sounding stuff. And what I've noticed is that it's kind of hard to choose a key to stay into it. So usually I just go for a root note. I think here it's D. Let me show the notes here real quick. Yeah, usually it's D for this one. And just sort of play it by ear. And so eventually I want to just translate what I put into ear into music theory, which I'm still trying to learn and practice on my own. I don't really have any formal training with this. I'd really like to, but it's fun to just learn from what you see around you. And it sort of brings a little humanity, sort of like the Lady Maria soundtrack. I don't know why I envisioned for this bass part, it just sounds cool in piano form. But what's most important is just the notes being played. And if you notice with the Bloodborne soundtrack, it's kind of hard to pin down a certain theme or a certain style to it, just because they establish a certain style with the, let's say, Cleric Beast. That's the first theme you hear. But then they just deviate from it a lot. The Father Gascoigne track, it has very similar elements since it's, you know, representing beasthood. But then you get to the Witches of Hemwick, which is entirely different. It's very slow and it's very disturbing. But then you go to Rom, which is also very slow, but very, like, ethereal and it's mysterious. And then you go to Lady Maria, who almost sounds like a Dark Souls soundtrack. To Gurman, who's just a sad, somber track. There's so much, like, different things going on in the Bloodborne soundtrack that's sort of hard to pin down which style you want to take. So it's just go off of what you think. I'm just going off of what I believe it sounds like Bloodborne, especially with these like quick staccatos here. That's in almost all of the soundtracks at least. So you can pick up a few different themes and techniques that they used here. So I'm going to take this and then transpose it into a full orchestra. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to show my process this time since I don't plan on doing it all in one session. So I guess I will either start recording halfway through the process or when I'm finished with the process to show you how I turned this into an actual orchestra. I'll be back with the next part. Alright, so I did a little bit of the first part, let's say the first half of this piano section, and I sort of stretched it out a bit to, you know, ease more into the melodies in here. So I'm going to play what I have, and then I'll explain the process of transposing the piano to orchestra. Let's start with the bass strings, or the whole string section. So I took this part. The way Bloodborne does a lot of their melodies, at least with the really low spiccatos, is they make it really dissonant. This is almost like sort of very, I guess, metal in a way. From what I've seen, a lot of like from my from my Mick Gordon, The Only Thing They Fear Is You, to Bloodborne orchestration. They did this like a very similar thing here, where it was very, notes are just very close together. I know Bloodborne doesn't use a lot of percussion, but I thought it was pretty cool. Had some little boom into it. Cellos doing the same thing. Then here we have the violas. And the melodies from before right now is being played with the violins 1, which right now is a spiccato, which you can't really hear that much, but it slowly fades in as we get into like the actual sustains. And these different colors represent the different styles of string. This one is a marcato. This is a sustain. Over here is the spiccato to do the quick. And this is a tremolo. So I load up all these, let me bring up the patch here real quick. So I load up all these into one patch of contact. And what this does is it sets each of these, the spiccato, staccato, marcato, sustains, and tremolo, all into different MIDI channels. And in the piano roll, this translates into the colors right here. At least this is an easy method that I use. I like having each of them on separate MIDI channels so I don't have to use key switches, switching between them. The one con that I've run into doing this method is that if you want to control each of the modulation wheel over here for each of these, it only sets the first one when you make editor thumbnail. So instead you have to go into where is it? Automation, MIDI automation, and then go into the patch itself. For instance, this one. Go into settings and then dynamics. This is what essentially affects this. And then you have to go into, your modulation tracks and then assign them to one of these. I'm not going to do it right now since it gets really messy unless I really have to. But that's my method of working with a bunch of different string articulations. And then the brass. Let me see the brass. There we go. So brass plays a pretty prominent but very percussive role in a lot of Bloodborne's music. As opposed to strings. Strings are just mostly used for melody and rhythm. But here, brass is used as melody as well as percussion. With like the clusters here. Bloodborne does that a lot. Yeah, stuff like that, and then just sort of improvise, add your own elements to it. And then, of course, the orchestral effects. Always gotta transition to new areas. Bloodborne loves to use these risers and stuff, as well as just Dark Souls music in general. So yeah, this is the first part, pretty simple. The second half is what's going to be a bit more complicated. I imagine a lot of these chords are going to be using choir, so that's what I'll be doing in the next part. So transition to that. Alright, I think I've since finished the track since we last left off. Over here is the B section based on, remove these, the piano section over here. So I'm going to play what I have here real quick, and then I'll show you what I translate into orchestra and break it down afterwards. So, since last time I had to change, this part, since I'll show you with the horns and strings, but when I added this melody, it sounded really heroic. And not, scary at all. I'll show you with the horns, it really shows with the horns. So I just put it down and it sounds a lot more menacing. So what I have is over here, and don't worry, I'll play the final thing all together at the end. yeah, the choir works really well here. Where is it? I'll show you what the horn sounded like when I changed the melody. So is this part, I'll put it up here, as well as had the violins down here. So all this is sort of just playing it by ear and seeing how it sounds as I'm making it, since it's kind of hard to tell when you're writing with the piano like that or earlier. So sometimes you'll run into something like that where it's doesn't sound exactly how you want it. It's okay to change afterwards. The piano, writing it out in a piano is just sort of to help me understand the harmonies that are going on, and if I want like a note to match, like a melody to match in the chord that's playing, then I can do that. Like over here. So I'll have like this higher violin playing, it'll match the choir that's playing as well. Both A's at that point. So in terms of the choir, right now what I'm using is the 8 Dio Requiem. It's a pretty old plugin, but I like their how it sounds and the key switches that it uses. For instance, I showed this in my Elden Ring theme as well. But when you just have the choir playing, I have the key switches down here to change the actual vowels that are being presented. And one thing I noticed is that it sounds very full, but almost too full. And I think that's because I played full chords instead of I've seen what a lot of themes use based on, you know, piano rolls that I see on YouTube is they just have the tops and bottoms of the chords, or they just have an interval playing. So I'm going to try that at some point in the future as well. But it sounds very full. It doesn't sound Bloodborne, which is more, you know, a bit contained, personal, and which makes it sound a bit more creepier and horror-like. This kind of sounds like a Dark Souls or an Elden Ring theme instead of a Bloodborne theme. But I think the themes of extreme dissonance are still applied here, where Elden Ring you can have other themes such like other feelings of like heroism or a positive ending. Bloodborne is just dark and scary all the time. At least this is what my interpretation of it is. Having a planner like this really helps, at least me, who doesn't really. I used to do all this on the fly. Like I would just throw choir and string together and see what happened. But I'm really glad that this is a new method that I want to be implementing a lot and just planning out my work in the future. So I'll be continuing this project and hopefully making more types of themes. I'm obsessed with Bloodborne, unfortunately, so I'm gonna try to be making more songs like that. So this will definitely not be the last one. If you guys have any tips for improvement or you want to see more, then definitely let me know. But I will see you guys in the next project that I make. So thank you guys for watching. Oh, as well as here is the final product all together.